Hi, everybody. I'm here with Tormod at the Desteni Farm. And Tormod and I are going to be having a little bit of a chat about mental health, seeing as both of us are walking a process with different mental health issues. Tormod with schizophrenia and me with OCD. So we've both been walking the Desteni process, self-forgiveness, self-commitments, self-corrective application. We've both found it extremely beneficial in our lives, and it has changed both of our lives in our own unique ways exponentially, continues to do so. So we're just going to talk a bit about how our lives have changed, why we're here on the farm, and just kind of casual chat. We're also getting to know each other in the flesh for the first time. We've known each other online for years. But it's awesome for us to have this opportunity as we're both visiting the Desteni Farm at the same time. So yeah, we're just going to kind of chat like that. I'm going to ask Tormod some questions. Maybe he'll have some questions for me. So my first question is, if you could talk a little bit about how your life was pre-process. So before you started walking the process with Desteni, what were you dealing with? What was your experience?
Yeah, before I really got engaged in process, starting to sort out my thoughts, trying to arrange my thinking into what they were, what my thoughts were representing, sort of. Starting that process in 2012, January, so it's almost precisely 6 years ago now. Starting to really sort out my mind, my thoughts, and prior to that, I was basically making a mess of my life. More and more exponentially, more and more abusive, leading up to the year change of 11 and 12. And so, basically, I just gotten back from a trip to Amsterdam, to Copenhagen, to Kiel, Germany, and all these big cities of Northern Europe where I would just abuse drugs and alcohol and do all the bad stuff and be saved by my parents, literally, to come back home to Norway and to start a process of reestablishing my medicational relationship with doctor, and slowly and gradually starting to work on the tool of forgiving myself, on recognizing patterns, recognizing personalities, recognizing energies as what I was living, and separation and thoughts and mind and all that. Learning more and more as I went through my mind, learning with the tools that Desteni provided, working first with demonology. Actually, at that time there was much, let's say, controlling energies. They were more possessive, they were more of a character in themselves. The energy had more of a character in itself. So I was working on that as well. So before I found Desteni, I was basically, since starting on my adulthood, my 20s, I would addict more and more to substance, to drinking, to drugs, and literally just making my life complicated, not finding a way to deal with my schizophrenia at all, really just driving myself further and further into oblivion, literally, before I found Desteni.
I mean, it's difficult enough when you're dealing with drugs and alcohol and that kind of lifestyle, but on top of that, you had schizophrenia to deal with. And then you found Desteni, and so you were walking kind of a medication process, and then additionally the self-forgiveness and the Desteni principles. How long into your process did you find you were changing, or did you find it supportive? How long did that take?
Well, I guess it took me about 1 or 2 weeks with consistently applying self-forgiveness on points, and there were many points, and there have been a lot of asterisks with anybody. The layer is multi-layered, multifaceted, complicated, programmed, and since mine has that, design and programming and so on, I started to work on points that were prominent, that I could see, that I knew were points because they were there in my face. So starting to work on points, on energies, on constructs within me, I would, after a few days or at max weeks, notice a relief. My breathing was much more easy. My breath was going easier. It was easier to breathe within a few weeks. Yeah.
So just a few weeks. That's pretty quick. I had a similar experience. If you don't mind sharing, do you remember some of those first points that you were facing? I know it was a long time ago.
Yeah, first point that I'm facing. Oh,
just an example of like one of the first prominent points that you were dealing with when you just started your self-forgiveness.
A point would be, for instance, sexual programming and desires, which is very complicated and which were very complicated to me, and I experienced it as very challenging, which it is with desires, to work on that. And I remember that, and also dimensions of blame, where I would blame these institutions or these teachers or these parents or these family members or these old friends or new friends and so on. Blame also. And what point for me early on was to really understand the difference between a feeling and an emotion, how that is in effect through mind into our bodies, into our living, actually in very deep separation, obviously. So that when the feeling operates and emotion operates, they operate per programming as in separation, while we are taught in school that it's just a flow, just a wave, it's just ups and downs, which is not real, it's not realistic. That is not how we humans live today.
Mm-hmm. Just on a personal note, I've been watching Tormod as I was also participating in Destiny, and in seeing his change over the years, it was unreal. If you have a chance to go and look at some of his past material, videos, blogs, and then look at how he progressed over the years, it's quite amazing. And for me also, who is struggling with mental health, it's very inspiring to me. So now here we are about 6 or 7 years later, both at the Desteni Farm. How do you find that your experience is now, after all these years, having walked these points, worked with yourself, worked with your mind, the programming, the feelings, emotions? What's your life like now, today?
Today I have a much greater balance, you could say. I have a much greater stability. I have a degree of responsibility responsibility. I have developed myself into living in a community that is supportive to me. I have a much greater sense of living, awareness of myself. You could say how I more or less stopped that separation of separation within, to literally limit my thinking, and by using my breath to limit my thinking. And instead of going into all those depressive and judgmental and what if paranoia, whatever thoughts that just mold and nag at you and bite and eat at you, instead of going into all those thoughts and all that emotional personality programming, I would breathe and stop the thoughts from controlling me. Because I've learned that thoughts is not who I am. They're just programs of mind, consciousness, and to literally just breathe and find stability within my substance, within the physicality of me, and from there on take direction and be my own authority. And that is something that I'm developing currently, to try to create myself into a best for all solution, into something that is sustainable, that are responsible, and a stable place for me to stand and be a solution-oriented leader, you might say, and to be a change for something that is not of polarizing and thinking and judging and blaming and fearing and hating and desiring and all that. Instead of that, I take it back to myself, forgive it all, and stand as my own best friend, literally, and support to then be able to live that message and explain how I did that, and what the Destiny tools are, and how they are applied, and how anybody can learn that, and apply, and literally heal from within, from embracing forgiving self.
Yeah. I would imagine that would take a lot of explaining, because a lot of the terms that you're talking about here, those aren't words that you hear in the mental health world, in the medicine world. So I know that we're both walking a process of explaining how we live these terms and what they are exactly, and about the process. Another point that stands out for me in what you just explained is the community that you're living in now. I know that another thing that we've both done through this process is we've changed our lives from being on a destructive path to getting ourselves over the years into an environment of absolute support. So, and that's something that both of us have done for ourselves, is taken ourselves out of an unhealthy scenario and created a life for ourselves that supports us basically as best possible. Can you talk a little bit about the community? How did you get yourself into it, and how does it support you? How is it designed to support you?
Yeah. Well, I was first, after 2012, I was living in the basement with my parents, and sort of learning that the real exploring is done into me. And instead of going out there and finding things in Amsterdam, wherever, finding things that are out there, I really need to look in here and learn that.
What were you doing going out to Amsterdam, and what were you exploring?
I was searching for the clue, for my ticket, for my explanation, for the big deal, for the drug, the suppression of problems, and trying to heal myself through seeing these mythical and the traditional ways of dealing with mental illness, which will be just suppress, deny, and stack away and hide and medicate, and just surf whatever is there, which is the, what shall I say, the common culture, and the denial, and just the ignorance of what is the real bother that we don't need to look into or investigate or take responsibility for really. Yeah.
And so you went from your parents' basement and like going out, drugs, kind of partying, into this community. Can you just shortly describe how you got there?
Yeah, I had heard about this community, a Camp Hill Village. Camp Hill Village, something for anybody to Google and check out. It's a really cool place. It's very much in many villages in Western Europe and in North America and so on. Camp Hill villages are villages to include people that have, we might say, mental challenges, and that are not finding their position or their place in the ordinary society. So I knew about this village, which was not too far from my home growing up. I knew about it since my mid-20s, I guess, and I'd connected with them, and I knew that they were there, but I was not ready to take that leap of moving up there until July 2016. And so I moved there after I tested it out and investigated a bit what it was for me, what was there. And I would move there and start living there since July 16, seeing that it was a very inclusive and open and you might also say honest living, and it was very, what shall I say, the idea of living together in a village was very inviting to me, and the openness and the honesty and consideration of the structure as of the village and the organization around it were very inviting and very much to my liking, and it allowed me to walk my process online and live, you might say, with walking my self-forgiveness process, walking my mind constructs, blog, my Journey to Life blog, to become a better version of myself. Allowed me to do that as well as working on the farm village of that campbell.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I definitely noticed in society. It's not set up for people with mental health issues. For anybody struggling with mental health issues, regular life can be a difficult and very challenging place. There's not a lot of resources out there. Tormod found Camp Hill, which is amazing that he did that. And that is the cool thing about the Desteni process, is that it's not just something that's done in your mind. It's not just a mythical thing like Tormod was saying. The Desteni process involves taking actual action and actual steps in your life to better your life for yourself first. So for me, I'm here at the farm, which is kind of similar to Camp Hill in a way, in that it's a communal living. Everybody has responsibilities. For me, I've found I was working in regular society and high stress positions, and it was very difficult for me. And I also took steps to set my life up where I enabled myself to come here and support myself while I'm here, so that I can have a similar experience to Tormod of just having that space and that support to walk my own process and figure out what's going on with me, and just have that time and that support to be able to get myself sorted out, so that I will be ready to go back, and start a new life, whatever that might be. All right, so let's end it there for now.
Yeah.
We may do a follow-up, not sure. But if we do, you'll definitely see it. So bye from me.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching. Bye.